Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast. And you are not going to believe this, or at least I can't believe this. I really am. I'm awed, amazed, grateful. This is our 100th episode. Man, time flies when you're having fun, like they say, eh? And it's been quite a ride. This has been a project, this Good News Podcast work that has been a labor of love for sure. And so this episode, we're going to actually take some time to reflect on what the experience has been like, why we even started this Good News Podcast. It was great for me personally to kind of remember why we do this. Someone once said that when we lose our why, we lose our way. And so it's just so good to remember why something's important. And I just found myself being convicted of how important this initiative is and what is possible for the future. But it's all about just looking back, reflecting a little bit on why we've done this. And we're even going to hear and watch some episodes, some clips from the 100 episodes. We can't go through each and every one of them, but we just picked a few to give you a glimpse and remind ourselves of some of the amazing conversations that we've been so privileged and blessed to have. So friends, get ready, man. Fasten your seatbelts. This really is a good one. Grateful for Rebecca Freer, who hosted me on this one as we took some time to celebrate the 100th episode. Let's dive in.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us today with Jamie and Rebecca. Today is a very, very special episode because this is the 100th episode of the Good News Podcast.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And we are so excited to be chatting today about previous episodes. We're going to go through the ones that we enjoy, the ones that, has made an impact. So we're just going to be naming a few. And I'm just so blessed to be here with Jamie. The person that kind of thought of this, and alongside others, I'm thinking about Matt Grosso, who organizes the schedule, who does the filming. So it's just been an amazing, amazing growth. And today we're here to talk about it. Hi, Jamie.
Hey, Rebecca. And I got to say, you've been a huge part of the podcast too, and have really appreciated not only you being on as a guest over the last couple of years, but also hosting. And that's been really exciting to see you move into that role a little bit too, and you do a great job. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So let's jump right into it. When did the idea of creating a podcast happen? How did that form up in your mind?
Yeah. Well, I would say, like many things, it wasn't just me. And the meaning there were a number of people around our church for a number of years who've been saying, "Oh, we should have a podcast, and maybe one day we could have a podcast." And we'd have these brainstorming sessions about visioning in the future, and yeah, it would come up consistently. And so, kind of the seed got planted in community. And as we sort of explored and prayed together for the future of our church here at NBUC, so that was happening over several years, and then I definitely was intrigued by the idea. I love to communicate and connect, and a podcast has been a way for that to happen. I think the Good News Podcast, like the good news part of it, because we're going to do a podcast. What is it going to be? And so that part really came because, for me personally, I am just so privileged to see so much in our city that is good, like that is so good. And every day I think I go around and experience something where it's like, I wish more people knew about that.
Right.
I wish more people knew about this cashier at the store that does an amazing job. I just felt so blessed by her serving me in the way that she did that today, or in the Ardglen community, just some of the amazing business owners there that were supportive. Like the list would just go on, and firefighters who do incredible work every day. So this was like, for me, there was, wow, if this could be an avenue to share some of that good news that we get to see because we're out in the community. Wow, that would be really, really cool. And then I guess even deeper for me, there's a spiritual piece that the gospel, we're, as followers of Jesus, we have the gospel. The good gospel literally means the good news, the gospel of Jesus, the good news of Jesus. And we're invited to be bearers of good news as his followers, as his representatives today. And I thought, wow, I think we could do that through the podcast. We could bring good news to people in a very unique way that would lift up all these amazing people and stories in whom, whether they would name it or not, we would see God at work without
Mm.
question, but also be bearers of good news, bringers of good news, because so often, we turn the TV or the radio or whatever on, look at our social feed, and there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of really heavy and hard stuff, and
Yeah.
and the gospel speaks to that absolutely as well. But this project was, let's hold up the good news and be
Yeah.
bearers of good news. Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
amazing.
Hmm.
So 100 episode after
Hmm.
today, before today,
Hmm.
did you ever envision it being what it is today?
Yeah. I really didn't have a lot of expectations, and
Mm.
and normally my mode of operating would be that I do, and so it's interesting. I really was just excited to get it going, and then it's been so full just keeping it going,
Right.
researching guests, reaching out to guests, recording the podcast, scheduling the podcast recordings, trying to let people know that they exist once they're done, once they're launched. So there really has been a sense of that there's been so much put into just doing that haven't really even, that's why this conversation is great to me, to even stop
Yeah.
and think about what were we expecting, what was I expecting, where are we at now with this. I definitely, and I think our team shares this vision, believed that there was a lot of people
Mm.
who need to hear good news, and that this
Absolutely.
really could be a way to do it. And I think it has been. And so there was definitely a sense of wanting to share it with as many people as possible. Hmm.
Yes,
Hmm. Yeah.
absolutely. It's been amazing as a viewer, as a
Mhm.
participant, just to see the amount of impact that it's had
Mhm.
on communities, on people. I wanted to know, is there anything that surprised you
Mm.
throughout these episodes that
Mhm.
comes to mind?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one, in some ways, that we've made it to 100. I
Yay!
know exactly. I am kind of like, wow, holy cow! I can't believe that we've done that many. That we've made it here. That we're still doing it. In fact, I would say not only going strong, but I think we're building momentum, and that's really exciting to me. Our team, and also just the people who we're having on the podcast, and the people who are starting to catch it and follow and listen more regularly. So that's cool. I'm surprised that we made it. Like, it's awesome. I give
Mm.
thanks for that, praise for that. I think one of the things that's really struck me, and I didn't see this one coming, was the experience for each guest that has been with us. And
Mm.
and I really have experienced every single time that guest loving the conversation. Like we get done and there's this sense of like high fives, and there really is a sense of wow, like that was incredible, like an incredible experience. And my sense is there's a few things happening. Like some people we've had on, this is maybe new experience, but we've had actually people who've been very seasoned communicators. And there's
Mm.
always this bit of anxiety maybe when you first start, but then you settle into this really awesome, genuine conversation. And you kind of forget you're even doing it. You're just having this
Yeah.
like we are right now. Like you're just in present in this moment, in this conversation. And so, yeah, I think at the end of each conversation, each person has just been, I think I could say, felt really blessed,
Mm.
as I have, to be a part of the conversation. Even if it
Yes.
didn't go anywhere. Matt and I say this all the time, like, even if no one heard that one,
Mm.
what God just did in this conversation right here, right now, was worth everything. Because that's the kind of
Yes.
depth and energy and connection that's happened. And I didn't see that coming. I'm approaching people, asking if they would, inviting them to be on the podcast and be part of it. And thinking, and absolutely, they are very much doing us a favor, and it's much appreciated. But I didn't realize the blessing that it could be and would be for the guest as well. And
Mm.
that's been hands down across the board. Whether it's a famous kind of person like Theo Fleury, or whether it's someone that has never done something like this ever before that no one even knows about, but their story is just as good and just as amazing across the board. Yeah, the experience of the guest has
Yeah.
been really beautiful and amazing. I just love it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And then
Oh.
and then the other piece is the joy for me. It's been,
Mm.
yeah, like it's been like I don't even know how to put it into words. Like it's been more than a pleasure. My For those that know me, my makeup can be to run and move pretty quickly, and always have something next that's coming up. And so as our team has sort of challenged and encouraged me to really listen to a guest, and really not have pre-programmed or pre-planned completely. You have some talking points. The way it works is we'll send out 3 or 4 talking points, but the conversation goes way deeper, way further than that, and that happens in the moment. I would just want to give credit to the Holy Spirit in many
Yes.
ways. But there's this sense of listening and being present with someone that has been just really, really good for me. Just a blessing personally. Mhm.
Oh, it's
Mhm.
been beautiful to even witness that
Mm.
almost.
Mm.
Because like you said, when you hear podcasts or shows, there is a lot of structure around it, but to
Mm.
have something where 2 people are just chatting,
Mhm.
or just connecting and
Yeah.
sharing, I think it's amazing, and
Yeah.
I love that you've mentioned a couple people that comes to mind, and I think it would be great for us to dive into
Mm.
those certain episodes and bring highlights to them and encourage you, if you haven't watched them, to go back and take a look at what it is, and maybe God's gonna impact you again if you watch it a
Mm.
second time, just
Mm.
saying.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that. I think that would be a lot of fun just for
Yes.
us even to do, but also for those who've been listening, following, viewing to catch just a little reflection on some of the highlights. Yeah, yeah. Love it. Love it.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. Okay, so let's dive in.
Okay.
As you say, I
Mhm.
stole your catch line.
Cool.
So let's
It's ours.
talk.
It's
It's
ours. Yeah,
ours.
for
Thank
sure.
you. Let's talk about the Holton Christmas
Oh,
episode.
I'm
Oh my
laughing already
gosh.
just thinking about it.
Can I just say how iconic it was to have all the Holtons in one room,
Oh,
in a circle, chatting and sharing memories?
yeah.
What was your thought after filming that? How did you
Oh,
feel?
yeah. It's yeah. One, it was fun. Like it was just kind of fun because the different personalities in our family came out, which was. But actually, I wouldn't say worried, but I was like, was that too real,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
it got quite real about Christmas and about just our own experiences that maybe sometimes hadn't turned out that great. And so
Mm,
I have to say, I remember that and I was like, I hope that's not too real. But hey, you know what? We always talk about being real, keeping it real. So
exactly.
we did that today. We did that today. But on the
Yeah,
other hand, like I loved that it was so real, like that
yeah.
it was messy. It wasn't this hallmark because I don't think that's not the Christmas story.
Mm,
That's not the way it worked. It was the first Christmas was Jesus came born into a stable in a barn. It was his
yeah.
parents were on the fly. They were refugees. Like it was messy. And
Mm,
so on the other hand, kind of cool that our conversation went to a bit of a messy place when it comes to Christmas. And I think that's probably the reality for many of us as well, that it's not just this
yes,
nice, neat package. Christmas can be complex and challenging, and still great. But yeah, so
absolutely.
that was my reflection. Was that too real? You know what? What the heck?
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe that's what it
yeah.
should be.
It
Yeah,
should be,
yeah,
and it was refreshing to see
yeah,
because you're up there on a Sunday morning, and it's great, but it was nice to see that kind of side of you
yeah,
with your family,
yeah.
how Jamie is as a dad, as a husband,
Mm,
as a friend,
yeah.
and so it was really refreshing to see. Why was that episode so important to you?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One would be I just love my family, man, like so much,
Mm.
and I love doing things together. So for me, I was just excited to do something like that together. And then I think yeah, just it was cool to hear from the different generations as well. It wasn't just my wife Katrina and I talking; it was our kids really getting in there and giving their experience around Christmas and what it's all about and how we've experienced over the years as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Which one was your favorite experience to hear from, if you remember?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, Cam and I are kind of aligned, so probably Cam, just because we have some similar, yeah, ways of entering into Christmas.
That's awesome. I love that.
I think I probably just got in trouble from everybody, but that's okay. Yeah, yeah. They're used to forgiving me. Yeah,
Oh, they're used
yeah,
to it.
yeah.
Hey, if they're not, we're gonna do another episode, bring all of them
There we
back.
go. Well, let's go, let's give everyone a chance to talk about what it is like to get a Christmas tree for the Holton family. Cam, what's it like for you? And then let's go, Caleb, Katrina. I'll try to
Yeah,
bring us
well,
home. Yeah.
it was definitely Leah dragging me out there. Like I would not have been there if Leah wasn't kind of forcing us to go. Because for me, it always felt like, oh, like I'm just gonna go walk around in the freezing cold while Leah tries to pick out a tree, even though all these look the exact same to me. And then I'm gonna be the one who has to cut it down and carry it back. So that was so like the years where you went to the gas station or like Walmart, I was like, those years were the best. I don't know. that's where I stand on it.
Hey, Cam, props, baby. Props. Okay, yeah. Okay, Caleb.
Well, for me, I was like right in the middle. Like, I would probably lean a little bit towards wanting to go get and do the full experience. But for the most part, I was right in the middle. So it was actually really, really amusing for me seeing both sides clash, because I got to see Cameron pound around, and arguments between you and Leah probably shouldn't be amusing. But looking back on it, it very much was. I can't think of an example, but just like, and I mean, even with Dad as well. What farm did we go to? Like
The one that was really far away.
It wasn't really far.
Albion.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not too bad. Yeah.
Had the snowball fight at.
Yeah.
Was it a snowball fight?
That
No.
part was fun.
I have videos of you guys like rolling little snowballs, throwing them up onto the top of the barn and letting them roll down, and then they become a huge snowball and then fall on the ground.
That was fun. That was fun.
That was the street.
That's the memory that sticks out most to me.
See, everybody can have a good time.
Best street cutting memory ever.
Yeah. So it was just like Leah trying to get everyone to love it. And once she got past realizing that no one was going to love it, just dragging everyone along.
Anyway.
Not really caring.
I don't care if you like it. We're doing it
exactly.
anyway.
Going.
Cameron hating it pretty much the entire time, except for when there was like hot chocolate or food involved.
And snowballs.
Yeah. Every once in a while.
Although he was so mad last year, we didn't want to hit him because we thought he might really break.
Mom being like the mediator, she's kind of
we can do this.
Yeah.
And just not wanting to hear us fight.
Yeah. And then Dad was also kind of with me, kind of just right in the middle. So me and him just kind of got to fight around the whole time while you guys all just clashed at it.
Let's talk about Jonisha.
Mm.
That episode was incredible. I think I've watched it or listened to it twice. Just to really grasp what she was saying, because there were so many gems in that episode alone that could honestly just stand on its own.
Yeah.
How did you feel going into that conversation, knowing that you would talk about something that's quite heavy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta go back to the fact that like I've seen Jonisha grow up. Like she's grown up in this church. And there was a piece of me, and her and I joked about this. I still saw her as this little girl, and had realized that through the conversation, and obviously through talking before she came on the podcast. She has grown up, and she has so much to offer, and so I was just blown away by the depth of her thinking, by the way that she was so able to articulate some really challenging concepts and work that she was doing around anti-Black racism, and then the honesty of her poem that really brought it all together. Yeah, it was and Rebecca, I'm feeling right now what it was like to have that conversation with her, and it was like holy ground. Like I got to go back and listen to that one. Like I can't wait now. If you you brought it to my mind, yeah,
Me too.
yeah,
It
phenomenal.
was it was one that I feel like could be for anyone to listen to, for someone to learn, for someone to kind of feel represented as well, for someone to also grieve. I really related to the words that she was saying, and it gave me the space to be able to feel understood and to feel seen. So what that episode did was not only like share her experience, but it was an opportunity for people to learn, to feel represented, and a safe space to feel.
So, as I told you before, I was doing a research project with the United Church of Canada, and we're looking into the Black experiences of Canadians within churches and things like that. And my attention, I should say, got stuck on mental health, because that's a really big issue. And I think that it's something that isn't talked about, and especially isn't talked about in Black communities. And when I went into the research and I recognized where that the stigma around mental health is in Black communities, I was like, I need to write something about this. And I was just like, there are so many people out there like even people I know who are Black, but they don't want to express that maybe that they're dealing with mental health issues. And I think that comes from like we've had to be so resilient and strong in the past. And I think Black people still think they need to be that all of the time. And they don't allow themselves a space, you know, to be vulnerable and to just, you know, yeah, I'm not feeling well, and say that out loud. And also just like through my research, I found out that a lot of the time in Black communities, it was believed that if you had a mental health issue, it wasn't really a mental health issue. It was you had some sort of tainted soul or something along the lines of that. Like here, you were someone, you had a demon inside of you or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I made this poem, which is basically kind of just, to sum it up, it talks about how mental health is dealt with sometimes within the church, and how it's kind of this dangerous cycle where nothing really gets solved, and how the person kind of feels like they're just like not getting out of the hurt that they're feeling, and they're not really getting the support that they need just because of beliefs that were set in the past and have continued to today. So, yeah.
Wow. I gotta think it's going anything. So you talk about research.
Yeah.
So what did that look like? How did you do research on something so specific, mental health in the Black community?
Yeah, it was hard, especially in Canada, because there isn't a lot of information specifically about Black Canadians in Canada. And I think that has to go back with the fact that, like, in Canada, we believe there isn't racism. We believe that for a long time. So we've never really paid attention to certain ethnic groups. So finding research in general was hard. But I did a lot of digging and I found resources about mental health in Black communities, and not just like how they feel, but like how they're treated in hospitals, how they're treated by police and things like that. And that type of stuff came up. So it's a lot of like reading academic textbooks, articles, anecdotes from people who have experienced issues with their mental health and stuff like that. So, yeah.
That was beautiful. And it reminds me of your other episode with Kirsten. That episode was amazing. And I want to know, why was that something that you felt necessary to bring her on? Why did you feel like Kirsten should come on the episode?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, we've been doing a lot of work as a church to become what's called an affirming church, meaning that we're affirming all sexual orientations. And so we really wanted to have a real person share their experience. And Kirsten is my sister-in-law. Katrina, my wife Katrina's a middle sister, and her and I we've known each other for years. I call her my sister. Like I love her so much, and have had lots of conversations around where I've been privileged to hear about her experience as a gay woman, and she lives into that in such an amazing and beautiful way. But there's been a lot of challenge, and there's been some people that haven't received her, and I just, for me, it was really important to get personal and real. And allow others to hear the conversation that I've been so privileged to hear over the years. Yeah,
it was beautiful to watch. Watching that, it was honestly very moving for me, coming from a family that is very deeply religious. My uncle's a priest, and I don't think I would ever see him having a conversation with someone from the queer community. So to have seen that, a pastor, a brother, a friend, mainly a pastor in this context, having that conversation was life-changing.
Yeah.
And it affected so many people. I sent it over to my brother, who is out, and because he's had some trouble with that. Where is my space in my faith?
Yes. And we got deep into that one. Like that was really, I love that about what that conversation, like Kirsten got really clear on challenging us as a faith community to not just let it be something that we put up on a wall, a flag on a wall, but how do we live into this? How do we really get real with this? And I remember it was both challenging, but just really appreciate that challenge, right? Because that's why we're doing it. We want to create space for everyone to feel like they are safe and they're accepted and they're loved and adored by God and by us.
Yes.
And
it was a beautiful episode. Probably one of my favorite personally.
Yeah, well, and I think Matt tells me that it's one of the episodes that had the most views and following, and really, really glad for that. You know, there's so many of these episodes, and all the ones we've talked about, especially Janisha and Kirsten. I remember like feeling the whole world needs to watch this, see this, hear this, you know, and isn't that what happens when you've got good news? You want the whole world to know it, hear it, see it, receive it, get it, catch it, listen in on it.
Exactly. It's by the community for the community almost. And it's been amazing to have that type of content just living there. You know, we can go back and watch it and experience it all over again and even more.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how community really, you know, grows others, you know, by having these people coming on and talking about it. So those episodes were definitely you know, up there for me. And I can't wait to talk about more because we've got some more. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people who don't affirm who they are. So you're not being authentic to yourself. And you're pushing down who you really are to your family because the message that's been given to you is not safe. So like I do know people who the second that they came out to their parents, they no longer have a place to live. So now, depending on how old you are, 16, 17, you can't get an apartment. Now you're relying on, who do you rely on?
Yeah.
Who do you believe is safe? So now you're kicked out of the only home that you've ever known because you tell your parents you love someone of the same sex. And it's all about love. But again, I think that whole, what's the notion, like, what is it from your perspective or the parents' perspective? What are they believing that makes you so wrong that you cannot live under the same roof? So now you're finding a place to live. You're either crashing on people's couches because you can't get your own apartment at that age.
Yeah.
Presumably you're in school. So I have had people friends who have been homeless.
Wow.
Until they can, they're bunking with other people until they can establish themselves.
Wow.
Just because they're gay.
Wow. Let alone the emotional heaviness of feeling rejected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
By the people who are supposed to love you the most.
Like unconditionally.
Yeah.
Unconditionally. I'll love you unless you tell me that.
Yeah.
So this is something else that's heavy when it comes into coming out to somebody. So as you say, I experienced unconditional love, but it's not until I tell you this. Until I tell you this one thing that I think is going to change your mind. And now you're not going to I mean, we can talk about so many people that have come out. First of all, so now you're suppressing yourself and you yourself start to believe that you are not okay, that you're not right, that you are less than, because that's the message that you've been giving.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing that people need to understand, I think people recognize, is the rate of suicide amongst gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans people is way higher than everybody else because the message that is being given to them is that you are not right. Somehow who you are is not on the same playing field as everybody else. And so how do you love yourself and can you continue to go on? How do you come out to your family when, and again, it's not the message that my family was giving me, but it's all the outer messages that are also being in society as a whole and hearing other people's story. So it's trepidation.
Yeah.
It's trepidation, and that's all you just want the people to love you.
So we chatted about, stories that have stayed with us and impacted us. Let's go into transforming, episodes and the people and the guests that you had. I'm thinking about Anjanae Walker and her episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your impression during the filming, during, the conversations? What were you feeling?
Yeah. Gratitude, big time gratitude. And just for Anjanae's episode, she again was really naming some heavy topics around equality and racism that she'd experienced in her life. But in a way, like her story exhibited someone who God had brought through that. Like, so here she was, someone that had come to the Journey Neighborhood Center, had been served through the center, but now she'd become the center manager, like this young, beautiful, diverse female now leading the Journey Neighborhood Center. So I guess I had two hats in some ways. Like, as someone who's part of the leadership of the Journey through the church, I was just so grateful and proud to have someone like Anjane in this role. But then there was also this personal piece of how far she'd come, how awesome it was that the transformation in her life, and who better to be in leadership at the Journey, who better to understand what people are experiencing, what they need, and have a passion to meet that need. So yeah, and she's so articulate, like she just articulated things so beautifully in a way that challenges all of us, because we still need to be challenged. We're not there. We've come a long way, praise God, but there's still a long way to go. And I thought she did a really good job of kind of walking that tightrope of naming, this is great, but however, don't forget, let's keep going. We got to work at this. And I just thought it was very inspiring. That was very inspiring.
Being a Black woman, a young Black woman, trying to navigate the education system is hard, right? Like society has been made for me not to succeed. And I have to work 3 times as hard, 4 times as hard to get to where I am compared to my other people, right? Compared to my white counterparts, to be really.
Yeah.
So it was hard with social work, going through those few years, learning really about all the problems in society and the roots and where it's coming from, and just continuously being reminded how oppressed my people are. I can't even say were, because that would be past tense, because we still are. And it was hard, constantly hearing about it, constantly learning about it, constantly having to write about it. Whether it was the Black community, the Indigenous community, like it was so hard to find the positive going through all that history of social work, how we started, the purpose of social workers, the intentions of the system that was created. And then it took me a while, and it got me down at one point, because I just said, okay, is this a field I really want to go into? That I'm constantly writing and reading about how oppressed my people are. And I had to just do some self-reflection. I had to ask myself if this is where I'm meant to be. If this is where I'm supposed to go. Is this my career path? And everything I do, I try to do with intention and purpose. So if I was supposed to go through this master's degree of social work, is this my right move? Is this me giving back to my community? Is this going to benefit me as a person, or is this going to drain my soul, type of thing? But I found I always have to find the positive and the negative. And as much as social work has so much negative things attached to it, rightfully so, I found a new meaning for myself. I found a new purpose for myself. All of my lived experience, all of my trauma finally decided to make sense as I went through this process of me being able to talk about it, me being able to connect with others on a different level. It's not coming from a textbook. It's not coming from practicum and placements of learning how to talk to people, learning how to talk to clients. It's coming from a place of home, a place of where this is my everyday lived experience. This is what I faced. And I have a better understanding of how to connect to others because of the things that I faced. So social work really gave meaning to my trauma, if that makes sense. And I continued with it. And I found that as I continued in my journey, and as I continue with meeting with people and continue talking about my life story, it really helped others find purpose as well to keep going. And me just going back and getting my bachelor's degree alone, like it takes a lot out of anyone racialized to get to that point. And I decided to get there and get it done. It was hard. There was a lot of tears. But finally being able to walk across that stage.
That's awesome.
it gave such completeness because I did something that society told me I wasn't allowed to do.
And Anjanae Walker speaks, you listen.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was just mesmerized by her eloquency, by the way that she's able to grasp the emotions that I also, as a Black woman, has been feeling, and just share that in a way that's so comprehensible was insanely beautiful to watch. Insanely beautiful. And it kind of reminds me of Sean Hilliker and his episode, and the way that he was able to communicate that through Zoom. It was just so well said.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit. I want to hear a little bit about your experience with Sean.
Oh, yeah.
How did you meet him?
Well, so that's such a cool story. So basically, our daughter Leah has become good friends with Sean's daughter, and so Morgan, and so Morgan and Leah met at a dinner at their friends one time. Friday night, I get this text from Leah, Dad, like this friend Morgan, her dad's a teacher, and she's just telling me about him, and it's like, you guys have to meet. Like, you guys have to meet. You guys would be fast friends. Like, you're so similar, and
Shout out to Leah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened. That's how it got started. And the reason we were on Zoom was because Sean is a high school teacher in the Niagara area, and so he actually, I love that, because he recorded from school, and so in the background, the bell's going, someone comes on the PA system, makes an announcement. Like, it was just so real. Like, here he was on his lunch, not his lunch hour, I think his lunch 35 minutes, and we took 30 minutes of that to do this recording. Wow. But that's the kind of guy he is. I can fit it in, and I can't wait to do this. And he just brought this positivity to the conversation in a time where teaching is really tough these days.
Yeah.
And so, it was just so, I got done. Matt and I joked. He said, like, that's got to be the most positive teacher on the planet. Like that, and so just loved everything about that one for sure.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I was taking some advice from it too. He was talking about career choices and doing something that you love, because you're going to be doing it for the rest of your life, right? And talking along those lines of really being real with yourself.
Yeah.
And I needed that.
Yeah.
So that episode spoke to so many people, and myself included.
Yeah.
I mean, when I tell people I'm a teacher, especially a high school teacher, just like you said, a lot of times the first reaction is, oh, wow, that's going to be tough. Teenagers, man, that's a tough crowd to deal with. And, whether they think they're lazy, they're entitled, they don't have the same work ethic that we used to have, they're addicted to their phones, hey, we all have some issues, and nobody's perfect. But I just want to tell you, there are so many great kids out there. The vast majority of kids I deal with are up to amazing things. And it's really inspiring, it's encouraging, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm here to tell you that I'm someone who's living in it, and I'm in this environment, and I am thrilled to be a part of it. I could give you so many examples of kids that impress me.
And Mrs. Davis, call the office, please. Hilliker Davis.
And you know what? They do have a good work ethic, and they do have ambitions, and they're very thoughtful, and they're responsible. Not everybody, but you know what? I've learned not to make quick judgments because there are a lot of people, let alone not just kids, adults. There's a lot of people with issues. A lot of people are struggling with a lot of different things. Mental health. There are different circumstances that leave them with a lot of things to be stressed out about. I always try to remember something that a friend of mine once said, and that is that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. And so I try to keep that in mind when I'm dealing with kids that are, not presenting the most positive vibe, not giving their best effort, and realizing that it's not a personal thing, and that maybe you got to figure out what's going on. And a lot of times maybe you don't know what's going on, and maybe you that's not your role. But I think you got to connect before you can do anything else.
Yeah.
And when it comes to teaching, and part of connecting is realizing that there might be reasons nothing about for why someone is behaving or making the choices they are. There's another great quote I really like. I'm a big quote guy, and there's a quote that says, don't judge my story by the chapter you walked in on. And I don't know if you're hearing this in the background, but you can tell I'm live in the school environment.
It's cool. It makes it more real. We're at high school with you today, Sean. We're at high school with you. It's awesome.
We're keeping it real.
Absolutely.
But that's a good one, though. That's a good one.
It also brings forth Billy. You know, Billy attends our church, and that episode honestly was so inspiring to watch, to see where God has taken him and where he's at now. Why did you pick Billy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with Billy, he was reaffirming or getting baptized, reaffirming his faith to getting baptized, and part of that process is someone is given the opportunity to share a bit of their story and how God has worked in their life and how Jesus is making a difference in their life. And so when Billy shared his story with us, it was like, oh my goodness, like there are several drop downs on this one that we need more time. A 5-minute story on a Sunday morning isn't it just doesn't do it justice, because it's so incredible. And so that's what, hey, wouldn't it be cool to have Billy on the podcast? And that was a very new experience for Billy. He would have never done anything like this before. But I remember him coming and he was certainly jacked. Like he was pumped to do it. And he was, again, just so real. Even having the conversation with me, let alone every single Sunday morning, as Billy sits in the front rows, he stands and raises his hands and sings and worships. I just think that's amazing. Many of Billy's friends, because of the past that he's had and the people he's been connecting, many of Billy's friends haven't made it to his age. They've had addiction issues that has often not allowed them to make it. And so the fact that God has enabled Billy to make it, let alone the way that he's living in, he is a new person. He's a different person. And it's really just cool to see it. It reminds me why we do what we do. How, you said you were young. How old were you? And then what was life like? What was life like? What do you remember from that experience? What was that like? Because most of us would have really no idea what it's like to live on the streets.
Yeah, it was very stressful.
Yeah, very
pain. I was about late teens, early 20s type thing. Wow. So in that bracket, it's very difficult. That my mom was there for a phone call. Well, my mom wasn't there for. She was there for support, but she wasn't. She wanted to make sure that I learn what happened and get my shit in order and stuff like that for the darkness that I was living, to make it more light in my situation. Right. Wow. So it was very hard and whatnot, but you have to do what you have to do. Things happen when you're younger, you have to move on. You have to build that strength in you you say the past is the past and the future is the future. Sure. Yeah. So now I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to make sure I have a place, stepping stones, right? Starting from the bottom when we're here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bill, I know you mentioned mental health. Just what were some of the other things that were happening that led to you being on the streets and just this very challenging life that you were having?
Well, that's what I said. It's just because it was very hard to keep like jobs and stuff like that. So my parents asked me, you can stay as long as you want. You just have to have a job. You have a source of income. We can't provide you anymore. You have to provide yourself. And I got frustrated because I couldn't keep one and whatnot. So, and my childhood wasn't the best because every other week I was grounded. So I saw my room a lot. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't get outside a lot to play. So, my childhood wasn't the best childhood. But moving forward in life, things got better. Right? So my retina came off my eye. I was blind for 6 weeks. I have a stent in my heart. I had a minor heart attack. I diabetes at 16, 4 needles a day. Then my kidneys failed. Then I had kidney pancreas troubles. Then 2015 Valentine's Day, I had a kidney pancreas transplant. And from there, just every little bit, there was somebody there like God or an angel or someone that passed away that was in my life because I felt like a cat with 9 lives. And every time there was a down situation, somebody was there to pull me up and risen me and whatnot. So I knew God was there, but I never took that next step to walk through the door because it wasn't, I didn't think it was meant to be.
And so that conversation, it was about all of that, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. I can even see it and feel it in your expressions right now that, you know, bringing these people on, these guests aren't just for them, but it's also for you. I wanted to know, has your experience with the guests that you have, do you feel more connected? How do you feel following an episode when you're chatting with people?
Oh, yeah. Connected is a great word for it. Just feel completely connected to that person. That you've gone someplace in a very deep way together. Yeah. And it's like going on a trip together, you know? But you don't know the destination, you know, when you begin. And honestly, Rebecca, like every time coming out, like both of us in awe of where that conversation went and how beautiful that felt to be a part of it, and like inspired ourselves as we reflect on life and our stories and the good news and God at work in and through, you know, all of that. So definitely connected with that person and inspired myself and hoping that others will be when they get a chance to listen to it. Well,
we are.
That's cool. You know, and I made it a practice of, because we record a few weeks ahead of time. And so by the time the episode gets released, I actually have forgotten in some ways what we've talked about as well. And so I make it a practice to listen each week as well. And yeah, like I moved, I get double move.
There you
because
go.
in the moment as we've done it, but also as I watch and listen later on when it's released as well. Yeah.
Double blessings.
Yeah, exactly.
We have so many more people to talk about. And I cannot wait to hear your, you know, view and perspective. You're kind of back in the scenes, behind the scenes view of what you thought. So let's get into the other people. So we've gone through people talking about community, transformation and healing. And now let's talk about episodes about positivity, a positive outlook. When I think of that, I think, you know, of Agnes McNelly, her episode, which did amazing online. People really resonated with what she said because she was so genuine and so real. I remember she said on the episode, you know, being kind, how far kindness goes. What were you thinking while you were sitting there with her?
Yeah. So again, you know, Agnes, I think would be quite fine with me describing her as like just a really everyday, ordinary person, you know? And so for her to come on the podcast, again, it exhibits exactly why we thought this podcast was worth doing, that there's this good news that people just don't get to hear in everyday life. And so I think she just really exhibited all that we've wanted to do with the podcast. Just let's get into her story, and you realize how impressive, incredible, beautiful, how good it is. And and then just to see the way Agnes has grown in her faith over the years, and I just love the way that she shares. In fact, that for me, that would be one of the episodes that if someone wants to know what it means to be a Christian, what it means to follow Jesus, and the difference that it can make in your life, but also in the lives of those who you love, I'd go back and watch that episode, like, because she just nails it, like, and all she's doing in my mind is really genuinely sharing her experience of God in her life, and how that's impacted her. But she does it so well.
She does an amazing job. And you've known Agnes for a while, right?
Oh, yeah. And Agnes is one of those people, and she shares a story in the episode how we would see each other over it was over years. Like I'd be involved in something with her family and helping out, and then, you know, there'd be this desire to come and connect, but it just, you know, life happens, and then but how over time God was talking about planting seeds. God was planting seeds, and men is fruit ever being produced.
Amazing. You got to bring in an old friend here.
for you?
Well, a lot of times, and I firmly believe God is around us, God is in us. So we are one. We are part of God. God is part of us. So when we speak to God, we're really not telling him anything he doesn't know, but we're verbalizing it to ourselves so that we understand better what our purpose is, what our concerns are. And a lot of times I will do the mantra, be still and know that I am God, and then be still and know, and be still and be. And it comes down to just being and allowing yourself to understand that God is everywhere and that he is always encouraging us and kind. I keep coming back to kind. Jesus and God are kindness personified. And if we can even pick up a little bit of that, a little bit, and pass it on in our lives, I think that's really what prayer is all about, is diving deeper and understanding what we want to do to emulate or to please our Lord.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's huge. That's significant. So prayer can actually impact how you live and
absolutely,
and how you are with other people. So you talk a bit more about that. How does that work for you? Even I don't, not to put you on the spot. Like, do you have even examples of where maybe God shifted you in prayer and you responded to something differently? Yeah,
I have a really good example.
Really?
When I first started coming to church, I did not share that with a lot of people, especially a very close friend, because I didn't know how that person would react. And when I finally did tell them a year after I started coming to church,
that's great.
that friend said, "Are you going to be like a holy roller on me?" And I went, "I'm just me."
Yeah.
That friend is now asking me to pray for
Come on.
for them on an almost daily basis.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the impact that God has is like Mother Teresa said, I'm just a little pencil. Like, I'm not doing any of this. God's doing it all. Such awe.
Yeah. I'm just a little pencil in the hands of a writing God or a loving God or something who's writing a love letter to the world or something like that. Isn't that?
Yeah.
But that's like, I don't know that without stopping to actually think about it, which is what these conversations are doing for us. I know they are for me, certainly. Like, I'm loving these conversations. I think we wouldn't necessarily think of prayer as something that changes how we live and who we are in the world. It's more, I'm stressed so that's good. But when you become more peaceful, when God's energy and life flows through you, you like you said, you live in a way that more emulates who God is. God's character, God's presence is more fully within us, or at least we're aware of that in a way that we live it out and we become different people. So prayer actually impacts all of that, who you live and how you live and who you are.
Because we automatically want to share that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called a Good News Podcast.
That's right. That's awesome.
And it reminds me now of a new friend that you made. Let's talk about, our big friend. Do you want to say his name?
Jordan Hart.
Yes.
Jordan Hart. So
I loved that.
Oh, Jordan Hart and his partner Emily Schultz, two young musicians who are writing music and performing music. And again, these guests came through our daughter Leah, who's also in the musical world these days. And it's cool how you meet people who you just connect with. And I know they have that kind of relationship that all of their lives are better having met each other and growing together and working together. And so the episode in particular, both of them were just phenomenal. The one with Jordan was really interesting to me because we got so deep into the conversation that the roles actually turned for a moment. And after he addressed a talking point, then he said, "Well, what about you? You must experience this as well." And I was just having a conversation. Like, I don't think he was trying to play one on me, or he wasn't. He was like, I wasn't at all. We were having a conversation, and that's the way that it went. And so I got into addressing this, and it was really like, how do you handle being on a stage? Because it's like, you're on a stage, not musically, but you're on a stage too. And what is it like for you to experience that? How are you afterwards? And so it got to a really deep place that also brought me in a way that like I was the guest for a moment.
Yeah, we should get Jordan to host.
And it was really for sure. and it was the where we both came to, I think, in that one was just finding ways to not feel the pressure that when you are in his case, performing or when I'm speaking, to leave space for people to have their own experience. And that's not actually all up to you, meaning absolutely you can prepare, you can do your very best, but how people experience things, that in some ways that's up to them and how they come. And I know I found that really freeing, and it was a bit of almost like a revelatory moment within this conversation that I know was really good for me. I hope it was good for listeners again, but I know it was really good for me. And it was just kind of funny how the roles got switched in the midst of that. And it was just that real, that genuine. It just sort of went there so naturally.
You were on the hot seat.
Yeah. But it was good. It was good.
Like 100% of me goes into everything that I do. And it's almost doubly true for this. And the message that I've come to explore more intentionally as I've been able to spend more time with what it means to be an artist and really find my identity in that is a deep vulnerability couched in a very comfortable environment. So I want people to feel safe and hopeful in the process of going to places they've almost never, like to depths and levels of exposure that they don't traditionally feel comfortable in, and to be able to do that together with people that they intimately know and together with strangers that they've just met that day in my concert experiences. So I really want my music to inspire a comfortability with vulnerability and a deep sense of like the power of God, the light of the sun level hope. It's just like this propelling humanity forward type of hope, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. I'm like, yes. I'm in. I love it. I love it. So what does that look like? Like what, maybe even taking us into a song that and where that has come from and how you've tried to do that, getting people to a place where they can be comfortably vulnerable, enter into the reality of whatever that might be, but with a sense of hope and light and God bringing us through to a new place. Yeah.
So this part, the latter part, is just kind of coming now. The way it started, I started as a busker. So I really cut my teeth on the streets in the middle of like street corners. The first place I busked was in the airport in Edmonton, where I was raised.
No way.
And had an experience right from then up until 2 years ago, where most of my performances, like I'd say 90% of them, were on street corners for people that were unsuspecting audiences. And because of the nature of those performances, I got to test this beautiful piece of justice in music, that the thing that was resonating the most truly with me at the time that I was performing it was inevitably the thing that would resonate with the audience the most. And it didn't matter. There were many years where I would chase, what is this thing that will get me this audience, that will help me to connect with people, which is what I've always loved most about music. So I would try to go out there and I'd perform top 40 songs. I would perform old classics. I would perform fast songs. I would perform slow songs. And there was no consistency. Some days, the fast songs, the top 40 hits, were what drew the biggest audience. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. But then other days I would go out there, I would learn later that those were the days that my heart just wasn't in it. Maybe a day where I was feeling really sad and down. And I'd still be trying to force this positive energy out of my performance. And lo and behold, it was very clear in the result. It was not resonating. And it took quite a few years, but eventually I realized that if I just went out and allowed myself to drop into where I was authentically in that moment and connected that through my vocal performance, it would often be where I would find where that was over a couple of songs, and I would close my eyes, dive into that song that I found, open my eyes, and there'd be 100 people around me.
Oh man, it's been so nice reminiscing and, chatting about these episodes. And, it's amazing what God has done. If you look back at, episode number 10, episode number 5, the amount of change, beautiful change that's happened, and the amount of, quality change has been amazing to witness. How do you feel, just taking a step back and really seeing what God has done with the Good News podcast? How does that make you feel?
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Good question. Grateful for sure. And actually really motivated. Yeah. Really motivated. Grateful for what's happened, but also, motivated, excited about what can still be. How do we help more people hear these stories, hear this good news, be inspired, be challenged, grow, get a glimpse of God in a maybe like a non-traditional kind of way in some ways as well. So yeah, very grateful, so grateful to Matt, Stephen, the team here. You're part of that, Rebecca as well. Our daughter Leah, just some champions of the podcast, and really grateful that we are in it together. And so grateful for all of that, and excited about what still might be.
Yes. Speaking of what might be, where do you see this podcast going? 100 episodes from today.
Wow.
What are things you wish for?
Yeah, well, I feel like, I almost want to say, just let wait and see. Let's come back 100 episodes now and do this again.
I love it.
I think more of like one of the things that happened as we took some time to do this episode and even reflect is Matt did a great job of breaking down some of the themes that have come up and categorize some of the episodes. Like those are all about transformation. Those are about healing. Those are about positivity. Those are about community. Those are about women in leadership. Those are about anti-Black racism and creating racial justice. So there's these themes that have come up that I'm quite excited to even pay more attention to. As we reflect on it, we really believe they've come up in the conversations because of who we are and who God has called us to be. And so let's do more of that. Like, let's continue to bring up these themes and conversations that will both be good news for people, finding this stuff that's happening underground that people just don't know about, and let's give it a platform. I heard recently, it's one thing to have a platform, but it's another thing to make a platform for others. And I feel like that's one of the opportunities God has given us with the Good News Podcast, that we can create a platform for others to communicate, to share their stories, to share their good news, to share this work that we've been called to do. And this also keep moving down these themes that are really, really important. And that's, I think, a unique way to share the gospel.
Come on, somebody. That was so well said. It's so true. And it's so encouraging. And I hope that, those that are watching this episode, this 100th episode, encourages you to go back to those episodes that we've mentioned, or even share, with us what your favorite episodes have been. So send us a message, comment below, letting us know which one you liked. And, we're just so blessed to be able to have this platform, like you said, raising up things that maybe other people weren't talking about a lot, And so I'm just so pumped and so happy to say that this is the 100th episode of the Good News Podcast. So go out there, share it, share some good news with others, share one of our episodes, because that also is sharing good news. And we will see you in our next episode. 101.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Man, we could have gone on and on and on. And I would encourage you to just take a look at our feed, the Good News Podcast feed, and there might be an episode that as you do that, you're like, I just want to, maybe you didn't catch it, maybe you want to listen to it or watch it again. I know I've done that a little bit through this work of celebrating the 100. So just would encourage you to do that, even to get a quick review of the kinds of people that we've been so blessed to have these conversations with. Like it's amazing, the spectrum, the variety, the quality of people and their stories. I am amazed and awed, so grateful. And do want to say thanks to every single person that have been a part of these conversations. You've been guests. I know from the experience that we've shared together that it's been a blessing to have these conversations. I felt that as we said in this episode, as Rebecca and I reflected on it, that was one of the amazing things for me, was just to really enjoy the conversation, really genuine, deep conversation with real people. Seems to me whenever we do that, it doesn't have to be a podcast recording, whenever we do that, have time with somebody who we care about and get real, get deep and listen to each other. It's good news. It's a good thing. It's a blessed thing. So thanks again to every single guest and the blessing that you've been to me, to our team. I just want to say a huge thanks, especially to Matt Grosso, who he is the man. He has been running this thing and producing, and certainly lots of help from Stephen Bennett and Dave Palvin and team. But Matt's had his hands in on this right from the get-go. So thanks to Matt, and thanks to you, friends. we're looking forward to another 100. Can't wait to see where God's going to take us and this initiative that we've felt called to do and to grow. Please, I hope you can be a part of the future as you have in the past, and looking forward to what God's going to do. God bless you, friends. God be with you. Thanks again for being a part of the Good News Podcast family.